91. Prince Weishi's chest was pierced by a blade, and his brow bone was dug out. He fell into the sea but didn't die immediately. He felt himself sinking deeper and deeper, the ocean gradually swallowing him whole. He reached out his hand upwards, as if trying to grasp the light refracting from the sea surface. But alas, light cannot be grasped, and only the dark seabed awaited him. Glug glug, bubbles constantly slipped through his fingers. His vision grew darker and blurrier. Shadows gathered around him, but he could no longer make out who they were. Who is it? Did they kill that traitor Henier and come to save me? This thought surged in Weishi mind, and a look of joy appeared on his face. Or, are they those monsters? But on second thought, he realized it was more likely to be those monsters, and his joy instantly dissipated into panic. In his fear, his consciousness completely succumbed. Several days later, in the underwater city of the Sal domain, inside a submarine cave surrounded by ancient cups, Weishi woke from his slumber, feeling a bone-deep pain, as if countless needles had pierced his body, stabbing into his flesh and blood. Ah! He let out an agonized scream, but as soon as he opened his mouth, seawater rushed in. He was imprisoned in a bone cage. Opening his eyes, he saw his surroundings through the gaps in the cage. This seemed to be a prison of the people of the abyss. It was just as he had guessed in the end, he had fallen into the hands of the people of the abyss. Why didn't these monsters kill me? Though the reason eluded him, survival itself was a stroke of fortune. As long as he drew breath, there was hope for a reversal of his fate. He looked at his wound. With such a severe injury before, he should have been unlikely to survive. But he found that the wound on his chest had healed. This filled him with joy and disbelief as he touched the healed wound on his chest. Healed, elated by this discovery, he immediately began plotting his escape. He looked disdainfully at the bone cage, thinking these people of the abyss must be fools to believe such a thing could contain him. He was a high-level priest, a powerful royal trilobite man who had mastered various divine techniques. How could this possibly hold me? He raised his hand, and mental power immediately extended from his mind. But before the mental power could break through his mind, he suddenly collapsed in excruciating pain. At the same time, he also felt the crisis of death. He turned his head and discovered the source of all the changes. Weishi saw a beautiful flower cup blooming on his shoulder. The flower cup was a brilliant gold, like the radiance of the sun. He finally understood why his wound had healed so quickly. It was the powerful life force of the sun cup that had saved his life. But there was no joy in his eyes. Looking at the golden flower cup, it was as if he had seen the most terrifying thing in the world. It's over. It's over. The forbidden technique, the king slaying flower. Seeing the sun cup rooted in his body, he was frightened out of his wits. How did King Yesiel die back then? How did Shlode, the first-generation Sky Temple priest, suffer backlash? All of this was written in the great poets, Yinsai epic, passed down through generations of the four royal bloodline families. It could even be said that in the realm of Yinsai, everyone knew about it. It was the Sun Cup's backlash that claimed the life of Yesiel, the second-generation king of wisdom, causing the trilobite men to lose the crown of wisdom. How could this happen? Damn it, it's those monsters. How dare you do this to me? How could you do this? In his extreme panic, Weishi tried several times to use the power of wisdom, but every time he exerted his power, the Sun Cup would devour the mythical blood in his body. The backlash came so quickly. Because these people didn't possess the divine techniques of the first-generation Sky Temple priest, and even if they did, they wouldn't use them on Weishi. They had directly rooted the Sun Cup in his flesh, brutally combining it with his power. From the start, their intention was clear, to use the Sun Cup to seal Weishi power, planting within him a seed of death from which no hope could sprout. The female Abyss Knight of the Sal domain of the Abyss Kingdom hated Weishi to the bone. Countless of her subjects and subordinates had died at Weishi hands. She wanted him to die by her hand, and in the most terrifying and desperate way possible. Discovering he was awake, the people of the Abyss guarding the prison touched their tentacles together, immediately relaying the news to the female Abyss Knight. A group of people of the Abyss lifted the bone cage and brought it to a cold and gloomy underwater palace. The female Abyss Knight looked at Weishi with a cold gaze. "Kneel before me." He was pressed to the ground by mental power, crawling on the ground like an ugly worm, a pitiful insect trapped in a cage. "Kill me. Just kill me." Weishi suddenly felt it would have been better if he had died earlier. This was no fortune, it was the beginning of his nightmare. The female Abyss Knight hated Weishi intensely. She twisted her huge tail and slid down, leaning against the outside of the bone cage, looking at the prince with blood-red eyes. Die. Of course you will die. But I want to watch you die in despair. The female Abyss Knight's cold voice filled his mind, mimicking Wei Shihozen's once lofty tone. Feel the grace I bestow upon you. I mercifully allow you to live a while longer. You will be devoured by the Sun Cup, you will forever imprisoned in this flower cup, suffering torment for thousands and tens of thousands of years. Wei Shihozen lay on the ground, looking at the female Abyss Knight. He was terrified to the extreme and felt utterly humiliated. But at the same time, he felt this scene was so familiar. As if he was seeing his former self. Arrogant, looking down on everything. Believing his punishment of others was justified, treating his lofty abuse as his own grace and charity. Perhaps, Wei Shi thought, this is how Henier looked at me. And that traitor. Wei Shi suddenly wondered if this was why they had betrayed him one after another. The female Abyss Knight turned her head and said to the soldiers. Tie him up on the island of the dead, let him experience the process of the saint's suffering. The female Abyss Knight looked at Wei Shihozen with contempt. Once, the great poet Tito was also tied up on the island of the dead to suffer. The first king of the Abyss, following God's will, went to rescue the great poet. Guess what? She sneered. Do you think God will send his messenger to rescue someone like you? Not only did the female Abyss Knight not believe it, but even Wei Shihozen himself didn't believe it. 92. Wei Shihozen was tied to the island of the dead, where the great poet Tito had once suffered. Centuries ago, this place was covered with the corpses of Yinsai people, but after Saint Tito's time, it had become an ancient relic. Stone pillars lined the island's perimeter. The once filthy and foul-smelling land had been meticulously cleaned, and at its center, a stone-paved plaza had been carved out. Upon it stood statues of the great poet and the first king of the Abyss. The great poet Tito, carrying a basket on his back, stood back to back with the old man wearing a stone helmet. Both had determined and devout expressions, one bowing his head in prayer, the other looking up to the sky. The background rock wall was carved with scenes from the God-given land, endless fields of sunflowers and pyramid temples. And above all, transcending the sky and stars, was the symbol representing Yinsai God and the Creator. Even in the Abyss Kingdom, Tito was still viewed as a holy figure. His legendary experiences were known to the nobles and people of the Abyss Kingdom, and his Hymn of the King of Wisdom was also sung there. Wei Shihozen's hands and feet were locked in stone shackles, bound to one of the stone pillars. Without great strength and weapons, it was impossible to open these shackles. Just as the female Abyss Knight had said. Perhaps, truly only God's will could save him now. The female Abyss Knight stood before the weakened Wei Shihozen, looking at him with hate-filled eyes. Wei Shihozen, Prince of the Volcano Kingdom. Our sins were forgiven by the great Yinsai God the moment the first king of the Abyss ascended to God's realm. Now, under the watchful eyes of God and the saint, repay your own sins. The people of the Abyss dove back into the sea, leaving Wei Shihozen alone in this forbidden sea area. Under the scorching sun, Wei Shihozen felt his bone armor heating up, felt the moisture in his body being drawn out bit by bit, as dizziness and thirst crept into his mind. His fingers twitched slightly, he could feel that his powerful strength was still there, the power from his wisdom ability and bloodline still churning within him. If he could just release it, he could break the shackles on his body. But as soon as he tried to use his wisdom ability, the Sun Cup would draw out his mythical blood, then completely devour him. Hope and death, at this moment, had crystallized into a circle. It was a circle he could never escape from. This was the most terrifying part. The female Abyss Knight hadn't pushed him completely into despair, but had exiled him to a desert and given him a cup of water. Drinking from that cup might offer him a chance to escape the desert, but the water was poisoned. He finally understood what true despair was, what real pain and torture meant. The most horrifying darkness wasn't falling into the abyss, but false hope. In his pain and torment, he repeatedly twitched his fingers, trying to break free from the shackles. His eyes revealed longing and expectation. But upon seeing the brilliant sun cup on his shoulder, he stopped in terror. This cycle of hope and despair repeated endlessly, wavering between determination and hesitation, slowly driving him to the brink of madness. Damn it all, you bitch, you lowly monster, descendant of sinners. And you, Henier, and all who betrayed me, who coveted my throne. I curse you to die horribly. I curse you. If Saint Tito had faith and ideals to support him in his despair, Prince Weishi's heart had now completely turned to darkness. His heart was empty, with nothing to fill this void, nothing to stop him from falling into madness. He could only try to vent his inner fear and despair through loud shouts and frenzied struggles. He cursed Henir and those who betrayed him. He raged at those monsters. Until he had no strength left even to curse and rage, slumping weakly against the stone pillar. In the blazing light shining in his eyes, through his blurred vision, he saw a silver shadow passing over the sea surface in the distance. What is that? Is it an illusion? The shadow drew closer and became clearer. He saw, with his own eyes, the divine boat he had been desperately seeking, coming from the distant sea, passing by the island right before him. Ah, it's the divine boat. This sighting confirmed his earlier suspicions. The divine boat's appearance was no mere coincidence. Waishi stared at it with blurry eyes, weakly mumbling. So, you really are retracing the great poet's journey back. Where are you going? Are you trying to return to God's realm again? He saw the divine boat come from the horizon, reach the edge of the island, just a stone's throw away from him. Then, it began to move away slightly. Don't go, don't leave, he cried out in despair, weeping bitterly. At this moment, he had lost all the glory of being a prince. Having fallen to the lowest point, he had nothing left to be proud of. He begged pitifully, violently banging his head against the stone pillar as if kowtowing, seemingly trying to attract the attention of the divine boat. His actions and expressions were more humble than any slave he had ever seen. Wait for me, just wait a moment, save me, please. But alas, he was not the great Poetito. He was not a saint on a pilgrimage to God's realm carrying divine artifacts, nor was there anyone coming to rescue him with God's will. The divine boat, sailing away on dreamlike starlight, didn't pause for a moment. He finally couldn't hold back anymore. Waishi burst forth with his wisdom ability, his mental power breaking through his mind and consciousness, whipping up a fierce storm. With a roar, his mental power controlled a stone to fall from above, smashing the stone shackles binding his hands. He had freed his hands, but didn't have the strength to free his feet. Wait for me, wait for me. Dragging his legs with the stone shackles, he crawled towards the divine boat reflecting silver light under the sun, the boat to God's realm. He wanted to board that divine boat. He crawled to the edge of the island. Just a few meters more, and he could climb onto that sacred ship. The silver boat full of hope. Wild joy surged on his face, but at the same time, he felt something. He looked back. He saw that the sun cup, now fused with him, had drained all the mythical blood from his body and swollen to its limit. The transformed sun cup opened its mouthparts. The prince died, leaving only a corpse. From the corpse, a beautiful flower bloomed, its dense roots taking hold in Waishi body, completely devouring his flesh and blood. Even his bones were ground to dust, swallowed into the flower cup. It was a flower that bloomed from Waishi despair. It gained consciousness, awakening its own wisdom. As mental power blossomed outward, it also saw the divine boat in the distance. It didn't know what that was, but felt an urge to chase after the divine boat, a strong desire to board that ship. The sun cup, having absorbed Waishi, seemed to have inherited fragments of his memories. Bathed in sunlight, it pursued the divine boat across the shimmering sea surface. 93. Night. An unusually large moon hung at the horizon's edge, its reflection shimmering and twisting in the waves below. The divine boat glided over the inverted image, drifting away with the ocean currents and waves. A stream of starlight flowed across the night sky, and a beautiful figure in a splendid golden robe appeared on the sea. The dream spirit gazed at the divine boat, her eyes revealing a joyful expression. She walked across the water's surface, caressing the hull of the silver sailboat. It was as if she were stroking the hair of a long-lost child finally returned home. At last, I've found you. So this is where you've been. Another sleeping life on the divine boat suddenly awoke, sensing the dream spirit's presence and her great power. Though the spirit had lost God's dreams, she remained a being far beyond the capabilities of ordinary power wielders. The awakened being was startled and tried to hide in panic, but the small divine boat could not completely conceal its presence. The spirit saw a sun cup that had awakened to wisdom on the divine boat, which also amazed her. The dream spirit curiously asked it, "What are you?" "You're not a dream spirit." Although dream spirits were born from the sun cup, more importantly, they came from Polo's mythical blood. The being before her was not a dream spirit, but a plant that had gained consciousness by stealing the wise blood of Redlucia. Its power and bloodline came from the power of wisdom. The consciousness within the sun cup trembled, like a child who had made a mistake standing before the dream spirit. The spirit could sense its inner thoughts, what it was thinking. Your name is Leishi. No, it's Wyson. That's not right either. Have you forgotten your name? Or have you received memories that don't belong to you? On the quiet sea in the ancient sailboat, in the vast emptiness, a single voice spoke, yet it was a conversation between two fantastical life forms. The dream spirit confirmed, you are a being between person and flower. You're not a spirit, but you're not a trilobite man either. You have the body of a spirit, but the bloodline of Redlichia. The flower cup of the sunflower swayed, as if nodding. A corner of the spirit's golden robe rose, touching the flower cup of the sunflower. Dream starlight rose, a powerful force enveloping the spirit and the sun cup. The spirit's bright golden, smooth long hair danced in the air. Her slightly closed eyes opened, suddenly revealing a hint of sadness in her gaze. The spirit looked at this newborn life and said, "You're having a nightmare. Your dream is filled only with darkness and pain. You were originally sleeping in Lord Polo and the Star Queen's garden, but were forcibly planted into the body of a prince named Weishi Hosen. You've inherited his nightmares and despair." The flower cup of the sun cup fully bloomed, as if crying out in pain. The dream spirit comforted it, telling it not to be afraid. "I can lend you my dream egg, to contain your nightmares inside it. This way, you won't be afraid or in pain anymore. You can escape from the despair of your nightmares. But remember, my dream egg is very important. I was keeping it for a crucial purpose. After I give it to you, you must do something for me in return." The sunflower cup nodded, agreeing to the spirit's condition. The spirit smiled, her chest glowing with light. The dream egg emerged from within her body, as if she were taking her own heart out. Dream spirit Gila's dream fragments had merged with the dream world, leaving only the shell of her dream egg, which no longer served a purpose for her. She had originally planned to use the dream egg on the divine boat, but now she had a better idea. She cradled the dream egg and placed it within the flower cup of the sunflower. Nightmares and despair, be gone. Turn into dream bubbles, forever bound within this dreamlike shell. The being between person and flower, having received the spirit's dream egg, began to release the nightmares and fears hidden deep within its heart. These dark emotions were swiftly absorbed into the dream egg. The golden body of the sun cup gradually dimmed. At the bow of the divine boat bloomed a dark golden flower, its cup holding the dream egg that contained a black dream, but within the black dream there was light. It felt as if a magical guiding lamp had been placed at the bow of the boat. Dream bubbles extended from the lamplight, enveloping the divine boat, just as dream spirit Gila's dreams once surrounded the temple. Its power was second-stage wisdom ability, originating from Redlichia, but now with the mental power merged into the dream egg, consciousness materialized as a black shadow, standing on the divine boat wrapped in dream bubbles, beneath the flower cup lamp. This was the consciousness projection divine technique, a change that occurred by attaching to the dream egg. With mental power and dreams combined, it could use mental power to propel the divine boat forward, and also use the spirit's dream egg to traverse and jump within the dream world. Bound within the shell, its previously painful wails and nowhere to hide fears instantly dissipated. The black shadow looked at dream spirit Gila, speaking in a halting, unfamiliar voice. Thank you. The dream spirit smiled and said, "We made a promise, didn't we?" The spirit waved her hand, and the gates of the dream world opened. Divine boat that travels between dreams and dream realm ferryman who guides memories. I hope that from now on, you can take my place, traversing between dreams, guiding all memories returning to the dream starry sea. Under the night sky over the sea, the spirit's ethereal chant echoed farther and farther. Life has not dissipated. Their memories and past experiences will all transform into stars, forever accompanying God. Beneath the guiding lamp, the black shadow controlled the divine boat, now wrapped in dream bubbles, as it passed through the gate and entered the dream world. The sailboat voyaged between the dream moon and the dream starry sea. On board was a strange ferryman, its appearance indiscernible to the naked eye, only a blurry black shadow visible under the guiding lamp. The silver boat, enveloped in dim, murky bubbles, rotated following the dream moon and starry sea. It didn't know how long this journey would last, only that this was its promise to the spirit. Since it was a promise, it must be kept forever. Finally, it arrived at the center of the dream world. That enormous dream fragment, beside the island where God resided. A girl in a white gauzy dress stood barefoot at the edge of the island, looking towards it. Glug glug. Faced with such a powerful and terrifying being, this time it felt no fear or trepidation. Those negative emotions were all hidden within the nightmare. It was unaware of the identity of the mother of life, Shelley, nor did it realize that she was merely making her habitual sound. It thought she was asking who it was. Who am I? I have no name. I am just a ferryman who walks within dreams, guiding memories. It looked up at Shelley, inviting her to be its first passenger. Would you like to board? I can take you to the dream's starry sea. 94. In the Star Luo Palace of the God-servant city. Star charts were engraved on all four walls, symbolizing the Star Queen. The dome was carved with a sea of sun-cup flowers, representing God's messenger Polo and the great Yinsai god. The burrowing demon worm lay coiled before the sacred lake, its massive form resembling a mountain of living flesh. The terrifying beast caused panic at the foot of the sacred mountain, but the sight of the sky beast circling overhead and the star of death in the sacred lake gave the people courage and confidence. Henier walked step by step into the palace, humbly kneeling on the ground. Star Luo Queen. Henier, as a member of the Volcano Kingdom and the Hosen family, why have you come to Star Luo? The queen sat on the throne with a dignified, yet gentle posture, one hand resting on the Yinsai scepter. Henier straightened up, still maintaining a respectful demeanor. Your Majesty, I am not a member of the Hosen family. My name is Henier, I have no surname. I am merely, he paused, a puddle of black mud beneath the feet of the Hosen family. The attendees were silent, not understanding why Henier so despised the Hosen family name. In this era, almost everyone took pride in their surname, and even commoners would hope to use their ancestral surname when introducing themselves. Moreover, it was the royal bloodline of the Hosen family. They did not understand Henier's past, and before this, they had never even heard of Henier's name. Henier didn't explain why, but only stated what he wanted. I came here because only Star Luo, only your Majesty can give me what I want. After stating what he wanted, Henier also declared what he was willing to pay in return. I have my own forces in the Volcano Kingdom, I can control the forces that once belonged to Weishi Hosen, and I possess the burrowing demon worm of the Volcano Kingdom. If your Majesty helps me, I can control the Volcano Kingdom. If I can become the master of the Volcano Kingdom, I will forever be loyal to you, honoring you as my king. From this day forward, the Volcano Kingdom and the royal Hosen bloodline will cease to exist. I am willing to become the Grand Duke of Volcano, serving under your scepter and crown. He even stated a condition that the Star Luo Kingdom and the Xylong family couldn't refuse. If you're willing, I can help you end the centuries of bloodshed between the royal bloodlines and return everything to Yinsai. Henier knelt and cried out, his expression solemn and humble. Everything will belong to the great Star Luo Queen, the last bloodline of the Yinsai king, the ruler of the Xylong family. Henier's words ignited a fire in the hearts of everyone from the Star Luo Kingdom and the Xylong family. The priests and nobles present turned their heads one by one to look at the Star Luo Queen, seated high on her throne. Desire flickered in everyone's eyes. All for that one phrase, King of Yinsai. This was the glory etched in the minds and memories of everyone in the Xylong family, for they were once the rulers of Yinsai. People can live without ever having possessed something, but once they've had it, they can never accept its loss. No one spoke, but an irresistible will descended upon this place, affecting everyone present. Even though the Star Luo Queen could maintain her composure, she couldn't suppress the desire of the entire Xylong family. She looked at Henier and asked her final question. Why should the Star Luo Kingdom and I trust you? Henier gave a reason that was impossible not to believe. I can swear an oath to Yinsai God. When I become the Grand Duke of Volcano, I will swear allegiance to your Majesty. I am willing to offer the final chapter of the great poet Tito under the temple, under the watchful eyes of God and his messenger. With these words, no voice of doubt could be heard. In a world where a supreme God and creator existed, no one dared to deceive the great Yinsai God. The Star Luo Queen descended from her throne, placing her scepter on Henier's shoulder, indicating her acceptance of Henier. Welcome, she said. The Star Luo Kingdom will help you, my Grand Duke of Volcano. Henier bowed his head, his hand pressed to his chest. This is my supreme honor, your Majesty. Sky Temple. Before Yinsai God, Henier swore an oath of loyalty to the Star Luo Queen. Joy surged on the faces of the Xylong family priests. In Henier, they saw a golden opportunity to turn the tide of war and a chance for the Xylong family to reclaim its former glory. With Henier and his burrowing demon worm, the Star Luo Kingdom no longer had to fear the siege of the Volcano Kingdom and the Samo Kingdom. They were even preparing to launch a counterattack. The young craftsman's son stood in the corner, his gaze meeting Henier's. The moment Henier saw Stan Tito, he immediately recognized him. Among the priests of the Xylong family and the natural-born noble bloodlines, Stan Tito stood out. "Ah, the lucky one," Henir remarked. Henir took the initiative to speak with Stan Tito. The inarticulate craftsman's son bowed to Henir, nodding in acknowledgement. Stan Tito asked him, "As a descendant of the Volcano Kingdom and the Hosen family, why are you doing this?" Henir, "Because the Hosen family has fallen. They are no longer worthy of their lofty position, wearing that inherited crown." Stan Tito saw confidence and wildness in Henir's eyes, the kind of confidence that could change everything, the kind of wildness that dared to challenge everything. It was something he had never possessed. The craftsman's son suddenly remembered a phrase he had heard, from a conversation in a dream that he wasn't sure was real or not. "I've heard people say that I'm like a marionette. Do you think that's true? Is this saying that I'm a person without self, or does it have some other meaning?" Stan Tito had pondered over this phrase many times, he really cared about it. Henir smiled. "Lucky one, truly strong people don't believe in luck. Only those who swim against the current can master fate, and the world." He patted Stan Tito's shoulder. "When the day comes that no one calls you the lucky one anymore, you will no longer be a marionette. At that time, you will become a truly strong person, someone worthy of everyone's admiration and awe." Henir walked away confidently, about to face the greatest challenge of his life, but he was fearless. Stan Tito watched his retreating figure. "Henir," Stan Tito mused. "Black mud, you say?" He felt that what he saw was not a puddle of black mud, but an endless black swamp. Henir strode through the long corridor outside the Sky Temple, his eyes gleaming with light. The words he had just spoken resonated deeply within him, expressing not only advice for Stan Tito but also his own strongest desires and will. "That's right, I will be the one who masters my own fate." 95. The capital of the Volcano Kingdom cascaded down a mountainside, its architecture forming a grand, tiered spectacle. The higher one's dwelling, the nobler their status. At the summit stood magnificent palaces, imposing ancient castles, and classic stone lighthouses. Atop the volcano's mouth lay a fearsome Ru beast, the lava monster. This was the Volcano Kingdom's second Ru beast, symbolizing the power of lava and volcanoes, and representing the Volcano Kingdom and the Hosen family. Much like the Sky Beast represented the Xylong family of the Sky Temple. In the indoor forbidden garden filled with sun cups, the king conferred with his sons, who also served as military commanders, about the war against the Star Luo Kingdom. The Star Luo Kingdom doesn't dare to deploy their beast's power. The desert worm of the Samo family has appeared suddenly within Star Luo Kingdom's borders several times, just a few hundred miles from the God-servant city. If the Star Luo Queen dares to send out the Sky Beast, we in the Samo family will immediately dispatch our beasts to besiege the God-servant city. The Star of Death is much weaker out of water, and the Xylong family has always used it to guard the sacred mountain. However, they were in a similar situation. The Sky Beast's terrifying speed and air superiority made them equally cautious and fearful of the Sky Temple and the Xylong family. The princes began to report on the situations they had observed recently on the Sun City battlefront. The Star Luo Kingdom is now pinned down, fighting on two fronts. They can't hold out much longer. The wavering Cell family, under the persuasion of my vassal, will likely soon side with us. It won't be long. The sons boasted of their achievements, each portraying himself as the protagonist and greatest contributor to their seemingly inevitable victory. Suddenly, everyone felt the ground beneath them shake. People staggered, some falling flat on their faces. Violent tremors came from underground, the earth-shaking sensation making people dizzy. In the palace, some frantically clung to pillars or pressed against walls, while others fled to open areas. The king hastily led his entourage to the open square, his gaze sweeping over the capital. Woo-woo, they saw the burrowing demon worm, once belonging to the Volcano Kingdom, tunneling through the mountain, creating a massive hole at the foot of the capital. It came from underground, having bored through something unknown, causing the entire capital to shake. Simultaneously, it reawakened the dormant volcano. No, his target is the volcano. The king's face suddenly changed as he realized the reason for the tremors. Though he didn't know who was behind this, he instantly guessed their intentions. Building a city on a volcano was meant to cultivate the lava monster, but they also knew the inherent dangers, especially the successive kings. But the burrowing demon worm capable of doing this and its cultivation method were in the Volcano Kingdom's hands. The former Volcano Kingdom naturally felt secure, never imagining that one day the burrowing demon worm would become their nightmare. He looked up towards the volcano's crater, just in time to hear a tremendous roar. Then, a scene of heaven and earth shattering unfolded before their eyes. This volcano, dormant for countless years, roared back to life. Rolling magma burst forth from underground, flowing out of the crater and down the mountainside. Flaming rocks like meteors fell from above amid billowing smoke and thunderous explosions. The people of the Volcano Kingdom looked up at the erupting volcano, their faces filled with utter terror, including the king and the princes. As if witnessing the arrival of doomsday, the once lofty royals and priests, those nobles who ruled the entire kingdom, were all frightened out of their wits. They rushed out of castles and palaces, gathering in the streets to flee downhill. But their speed was no match for the rolling lava. They watched helplessly as their magnificent palaces and towering ancient castles were gradually covered and swallowed by the magma. Even the lighthouse standing tall at the summit collapsed with a thunderous crash. The royals who enjoyed luxurious lives and the nobles who owned vast fishing grounds and slaves were all reduced to ashes in the scorching lava amid painful wails. In contrast, the commoners and slaves living at the foot of the mountain reacted quickly, fleeing in groups with their families towards the distant plains and deserts, most escaping with their lives. Roar! The lava monster at the summit moved. The Volcano King rode it, carrying a small number of royals as they plunged downward, trying to escape this land of death. But at that moment, the ground rolled and heaved, and the burrowing demon worm appeared before him, blocking his path. The Volcano King's composure shattered. Wild-eyed, he stared at the burrowing demon worm and demanded, "Who are you really?" "Weishi." "No, you can't be Weishi." A familiar voice came from the worm's mouth. "Respected king of Volcano, fleeing in panic is not befitting of a king's demeanor. As a king, when the capital falls, you should perish with it. That is what a king should do." The Volcano King, riding the lava monster, was stunned for a moment. Hearing this tone, he finally remembered who was before him. "It's you, Henir. How did the burrowing demon worm end up in your hands? Where's Weishi?" Henir's voice was calm. "What do you think?" The king clenched his fists, his eyes bulging with rage. "Why are you doing this?" "Of course," Henir sneered, "I want you dead." The king was nearly driven mad with anger. This low-born bastard, this black mud born of commoners. How dare he, how dare he? You madman, because of you, the Hosen family has lost its capital, lost hundreds and thousands of its members. The Volcano Kingdom has lost the foundation it accumulated over hundreds of years, do you realize that? Henir didn't speak, responding only with mocking laughter. The more the king lost his composure, the more it was what Henir wanted to see. Ha 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 ha. The battle between the two erupted on the volcano. At the Volcano King's command, the lava monster spewed scorching red magma from its mouth. The magma swept across the ground, and the burrowing demon worm immediately burrowed underground to avoid it. But whenever the lava monster tried to leave the volcano, the burrowing demon worm would instantly emerge to block it, its fangs biting the lava monster's feet, its tentacles tightly entangling it. The lava monster possessed attack power far surpassing the burrowing demon worm and was once the Volcano Kingdom's greatest deterrent force. But now, faced with the burrowing demon worm's abilities, it couldn't fully unleash its power. Henir controlled the burrowing demon worm, firmly blocking the king and the lava monster on the path down the mountain. The king grew increasingly anxious, while Henir became more and more at ease. Rumble 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 tilde. Another round of volcanic eruption came, this time a full-scale eruption. Magma surged out like a tidal wave, creating a giant wave tens of meters high from the summit. It raised hundreds or thousands of meters of thick smoke, and a red glow tens of meters high. The towering magma wave rolled down, enveloping the entire mountain peak, approaching the battling burrowing demon worm and lava monster. However, the burrowing demon worm burrowed underground at the last moment, narrowly escaping. The lava monster wasn't so lucky. The terrifying magma engulfed it, and the beast's horrifying roars echoed for tens of miles. The Volcano King watched the magma pouring down from above and the objects falling endlessly amid the thick smoke. He let out a final roar of rage. Henir. The name he had given that illegitimate son long ago, meaning black mud. He never imagined that one day, it would transform into a terrifying black swamp, completely devouring the entire Volcano Kingdom and the Hosen family. In the distance, Henir controlled the worm using the divine technique of consciousness projection, a smile spreading across his face. "Ah," Henir exclaimed, "finally, it's all gone." Looking at the capital engulfed in destruction, fire, and magma, seeing the Hosen family vanish into thin air. With this single move, he had killed almost all the power holders of the Volcano Kingdom here. All those who could oppose him, those who looked down on him from above, all perished here. This was exactly what Henier wanted. The Samo Kingdom's army and beast were firmly held back by the Star Luo Kingdom at the Volcano Kingdom's border, where an even more intense battle was unfolding. 4 Ru beasts and tens of thousands of soldiers were engaged in a great battle there, with the Star Luo Queen and the Samo King personally leading the fight. The Samo Kingdom received news and wanted to rush to rescue the Hosen family, but the Star Luo Kingdom naturally wouldn't allow that. However, it's likely that none of them anticipated everything here would end so quickly. Lord Henier. Rows of priests and nobles stood behind Henier. These priests all possessed royal blood but were from side branches or were illegitimate children who hadn't been given important roles. Henier had been cultivating their loyalty for a long time. They had once been frustrated and unappreciated, but now they all rose to power alongside Henier. And these nobles were local lords and aristocrats who saw in Henier an opportunity to enter the core of power. In their eyes, Henier saw excitement, ambition, as well as greed and desire. Desire is not shameful, wanting to gain more is not wrong in itself. From today onwards, Henier declared, everything here belongs to us. I will share power and glory with you all. Everyone knelt before Henier, shouting his name. However, at this moment, there was another disturbance from the volcano. Everyone turned to look in that direction. A primitive, hollow sound echoed across the sky. It was the voice of the beast. The lava monster, which had been swallowed by the volcano, came back to life. The insect-like shell on the beast's body gradually fell off, and the Ru beast restored its original appearance. It writhed on the ground, slowly moving towards the distance. At the end of its journey lay the sea. Having lost the Ru brand, no trilobite man could restrain or control it anymore. Henier recalled the messenger of God he had encountered, and the words she had once spoken. God will bestow upon the trilobite men the power of creation, and reclaim the power of destruction. God had taken back the gift he had once bestowed upon King Redlichia. 96. Henier led the new nobles of the Volcano Duchy into the Star Luo Palace in the God-servant city. The queen welcomed them with the grandest ceremony, and the cheers of the people resonated throughout the entire city. Amidst thunderous applause and all eyes upon him, the new Grand Duke of Volcano knelt on one knee to swear allegiance to the Star Luo Queen. He held up the Hosen family's portion of the final chapter, his demeanor humble and his expression calm. It was hard to imagine that this very person had used the most violent and terrifying methods to erase an ancient and magnificent city, ending the Hosen family's centuries-long rule over the Volcano Kingdom. Grand Duke of Volcano, the Star Luo Kingdom and the Xilong family will never forget your achievements. The Star Luo Queen accepted the final chapter of the great poet Tito offered by Henier. Standing beneath the center of the dome carved with a sea of sunflowers, she displayed this saint's relic to the priests of the Sky Temple and the nobles of the Star Luo Kingdom, indicating that the Star Luo Kingdom was truly bathed in God's glory. Those present fervently shouted the 3 words, Yinsai, the sound spreading from the palace and gathering into an ocean throughout the God-servant city. Yinsai, Yinsai, Yinsai. Everyone knew what it meant to shout these 3 words at this moment. The Star Luo Kingdom and the Xilong family wanted to recreate the unified Yinsai of hundreds of years ago, becoming the supreme ruler of all trilobite men. Henier, kneeling on one knee before the queen, showed no change in expression, only a slight movement in his eyes. He had become the ruler of the Volcano Duchy, nominally a Grand Duke but in reality, the king of the former Volcano Kingdom. The intoxicating taste of power and superiority coursed through him. He lowered his head, his eyes fixed on the scepter standing before him. Once upon a time, the wise King Redlichia, Yesiel, King Eli, and the Star Queen, those ancient rulers recorded in history books, had held this very scepter. Since the loss of the Crown of Wisdom, this scepter had been the symbol of the King of Yinsai. Henier raised his head, looking respectfully at the Star Luo Queen. The Crown of Yinsai has been lost for hundreds of years. Your Majesty will surely restore the realm of Yinsai and the glory of the Xilong family. The Star Luo Queen was pleased with the Grand Duke of Volcano Henier's demeanor, nodding to him in approval before everyone. Yet she did not know that Henier's humble gaze was fixed on the Ru brand on her forehead. There were 2 Ru brands overlapping on her forehead, one of which was gradually fading. The Star Luo Kingdom's war against the Samo Kingdom and the Volcano Kingdom had been intense. The Star Luo Queen had used the Sky Beast many times, rushing to the areas around Sun City and Stone Forest City several times as if putting out fires. And due to the desert worm of the Samo Kingdom approaching, she had to quickly withdraw to the Sacred Mountain. Not long ago, the Star Luo Kingdom had concluded a grueling half-month battle with the Samo Kingdom, only to be rewarded with this great victory, the submission of the Volcano Kingdom. However, the Star Luo Queen did not know that God had already reclaimed the destructive power of the beasts. Each time she used the Ru brand to control the beast, she was consuming the grace bestowed upon the Trilobite men by God. Henier, on the other hand, had already begun to prepare for the future. Perhaps soon, the Ru beasts would become a power that could only intimidate but not be easily used. No one would be able to recklessly consume God's grace as before. In her dream, the Star Luo Queen stood atop the sky beast, watching the dreamlike starlight chase and gather into a ribbon in the sky above the sacred mountain. Amidst the sea of clouds and the ribbon, a majestic giant gate suddenly opened, revealing a sacred and dreamlike world. In the endless sea of sunflowers, spirits sang celestial melodies. God's messenger and the Mother of Life stood on either side at the end of the sacred staircase. At the highest point of all, eternal light like stars radiated, that was the will and gaze of God. She would step onto this sacred path to have an audience with the eternal Yinsai God. The Star Luo Queen once again dreamed of opening the realm of God, this time so clearly. Unlike last time, she believed she should be able to see God. However, just as she stood before the gate of God's realm, a voice came from behind her. "You've come again." In the void stood a beautiful being. Like a deity, with bright golden, smooth hair flying with dreamlike starlight. On the magnificent golden robe were imprinted the sun and stars, and various beautiful dream bubbles. "It's you." The Star Luo Queen recognized her. The last time she saw her in a dream, she only had her own guesses about the being before her. But now, she could be certain. The dream spirit approached her and said, "My name is Hila. You once called my true name. We meet again." The Star Luo Queen said joyfully, "Then, messenger of God, are you here to welcome me to God's realm?" But the dream spirit shook her head. "Not yet." Star Luo Queen, "Why?" Dream spirit, "Because only those willing to give up the beast and the power of destruction can enter God's realm to welcome the new era." Queen of the Star Luo Kingdom, descendant of Redlichia. "You, descendant of Redlichia," the spirit continued, "are you willing to give up the power of the beast?" The Star Luo Queen was about to say she was willing, but just as the words were about to leave her mouth, she suddenly hesitated. If it had been before, she might have agreed without hesitation. But at this moment, she hesitated. Yinsai is about to return to the Xilong family. If I no longer have the Ru beast, can I still restore the glory of the past? Wait a little longer. At least, until the moment the crown of Yinsai reappears. The dream spirit saw the hesitation in the Star Luo Queen's eyes, and her face showed regret and disappointment. "It seems I have not come at the right time," the spirit said, disappointment clear in her voice. The spirit said no more and turned to leave with the starlight. The Star Luo Queen chased after her, calling out loudly, "Great messenger of God, it's not that I'm unwilling, I just want to wait a little longer." She anxiously chased after the starlight, but the other's shadow grew more and more distant. The gate to God's realm also became further and further away, and the pleasant, ethereal song of the spirits gradually faded. She fell from the gate of God's realm, plummeting from the clouds. Suddenly, she awoke from her dream with a start. Sitting on her stone bed, feeling lost and disappointed. She didn't know if she had done something wrong, or if she had lost something. The Star Luo Kingdom had obtained the Great Poet Tito's final chapter, and the so-called complete key to open the gate of God's realm. But the original ceremony to open the gate of God's realm was once again postponed. Her Majesty the Queen sat on the throne and told her subjects, "I want to go to God's realm to have an audience with the eternal Yinsai as the King of Yinsai." Such a reason seemed very sufficient. Unfortunately, people can only deceive others. They cannot deceive their own hearts. Nor can they deceive God. 97. The Star Luo Kingdom had annexed the Volcano Kingdom, transforming the former realm of the Hosen family into a duchy under its control. However, their next target was not the formidable Samo Kingdom, but the Sel family, one of the 4 royal bloodline families. The severely wounded Samo Kingdom had just withdrawn its troops from Stone Forest City and was licking its wounds from the previous war with the Star Luo Kingdom. Having lost its most important ally, the entire Samo Kingdom trembled in fear of retaliation from the Star Luo Kingdom. The Queen seized this opportunity, deciding to conquer the Sel Kingdom before they could react. In the palace, all eyes were fixed upon the Queen, a mixture of desire and anticipation evident in their gazes. The Star Luo Queen, seated regally on her throne, met the eyes of everyone present. In that moment, a single thought united them all. For centuries, she began, her voice carrying throughout the hall, the Samo, Hosen, and Cell families once pledged allegiance to the Star Queen and the Xylong family. But their greed and betrayal tore apart the realm of Yinsai. She paused, her gaze sweeping across the assembled crowd. The people have forgotten the glory of the Yinsai kingdom and the Xylong family. But no more. With a graceful movement, she raised the Yinsai scepter high, its presence a tangible reminder of their heritage. The time has come, she declared. The realm of Yinsai shall once again be united under the throne of the Xylong family. Her words ignited a wave of cheers, with members of the Xylong family moved to tears by the promise of restored glory. The call to arms spread rapidly throughout the Star Luo kingdom. Noble lords from various territories arrived with their soldiers and weapons, war clouds gathering ominously at the border. However, their march was interrupted halfway. The army was ambushed, facing unexpected resistance that forced them to regroup and reassess their strategy. The desert worm of the Samo family had suddenly appeared, frantically obstructing the Star Luo kingdom's army at all costs. This desperate act revealed the depth of the Samo family's panic and fear. After a brutal battle, the Star Queen finally reached the border of the Cell Kingdom. This small kingdom, which had long played both sides among the three great kingdoms, now faced an unavoidable choice. The ultimatum was clear: submit or face annihilation. Meanwhile, Grand Duke of Volcano Henir swiftly responded to the Star Luo Queen's call. He mobilized all available forces within the Volcano Duchy, particularly targeting the restless and ambitious lords eager for an opportunity to prove themselves. Henir's strategy was clear. Through this war, he aimed to thoroughly reorganize the internal power structure of the Volcano Kingdom, consolidating his control and silencing any opposition. The Star Luo Queen surveyed the army Henir had brought, along with the imposing burrowing demon worm. Her expression was one of satisfaction, convinced she had not misjudged him. Grand Duke Henir, your loyalty is commendable. Henir maintained his composed demeanor, showing no outward sign of pride at the Queen's praise. As long as it is your Majesty's will, I am prepared to give my all. This is the sacred oath I have sworn before God. It was then that Henir noticed the damage to the Star Luo Kingdom's army, particularly the terrible bite marks marring the Sky Beast's body. Concern furrowed his brow as he inquired about what had transpired. The Queen's expression hardened as she recounted the events. The desert worm of the Samo Kingdom ambushed our army en route. Though we drove it back, they've now had time to react. I suspect the Samo Kingdom is hastily gathering troops to aid the Cell Kingdom. She paused, her gaze distant as she considered their strategy. However, it's unlikely their forces will arrive in time. They may instead opt to attack us directly, perhaps targeting Stone Forest City or even the God-Servant City. The Queen's foresight had not failed her. She had left the Rue Beast, Star of Death, in the Sacred Lake as a contingency. This reserve force stood ready to defend their territories should the need arise. Henir bowed respectfully, genuine admiration in his voice as he praised the Queen's wisdom. As he raised his head, however, something caught his eye. The Sky Beast's Rue brand on the Star Luo Queen's forehead was no longer merely faded, it had become blurry and indistinct. For a moment, his face froze, thoughts racing. Has the Xylong family's Sky Beast brand come to an end so quickly? In that instant, memories flashed through his mind. God's messenger, the fallen Volcano King, and the Rue Beast that had died and come back to life, heading towards the sea. A sudden tremor rose in the heart of the new Grand Duke of Volcano, an idea taking root in his mind. His eyes changed in an instant, filled with a desperate madness that barely concealed the wild greed lurking beneath. Quickly lowering his head to hide his expression, Henir made a bold request. Your Majesty, there are still many in the kingdom who doubt my loyalty. Allow me to prove myself by conquering the capital of the Cell Kingdom, the City of Sea Spirits, in your name. The Star Luo Queen's expression softened, touched by what she perceived as devotion. Your loyalty is not in question, Henir, she assured him. Nevertheless, she nodded her assent, granting his request. The Queen knew well the challenges that lay ahead. Attacking the fortified city of Sea Spirits would be an arduous task, one that would exact a heavy toll. She had initially hesitated to assign Henir such a daunting mission, fearing he might balk at the difficulty. His eagerness to take on this challenge only served to increase her estimation of him. Henir bowed deeply, maintaining his humble demeanor as he retreated from the Queen's presence. Once out of sight, a shadow of a smile played across his lips. The Star Luo Queen looked at the scepter in her hand, remembering its former owners. Her voice trembled with emotion as she recited the names of the great rulers who had once wielded it. The Star Queen, King Eli, King Yesiel, and the great King Redlichia. Each name seemed to resonate with the weight of history and the promise of a glorious future. As night fell, Henir gathered his vassals in a small town that now served as their military camp. They huddled around maps and plans, discussing strategies to breach the formidable defenses of the city of sea spirits. The Queen's Sky Beast will handle the Cell Kingdom's monster, the Cell Sea Spirit, Henir began, his voice low and intense. But we cannot underestimate the Sea Spirit priests and garrison soldiers. They will not yield easily. He outlined his plan, emphasizing the need to conserve their strength and use the burrowing demon worm judiciously. Our main force will assault the deep water port, he explained. It's the city's lifeline. If we can seize it, the city of sea spirits will be unable to hold out for long. As his commanders nodded in understanding, Henir continued. The city lies on an island about 10 miles offshore, but each evening at low tide, a path appears. That will be our window of opportunity, but we must be prepared for fierce resistance. With the strategy set, Henir dismissed his vassals to make their preparations. Left alone, he paced under the moonlight, his mind churning with possibilities and risks. His moment of hesitation was brief. Soon, he summoned his most trusted advisor. Take 2,000 men, he ordered, his voice barely above a whisper, and position them outside the deep water port. Wait there for my signal. The advisor's brow furrowed in confusion. Waiting. But Grand Duke, what exactly are we waiting for? Henir's eyes glinted in the darkness. Wait for chaos to erupt at the deep water port. When the moment is right, I will use the divine technique to give you further instructions. Though Henir revealed no more of his plan, his closest confidants sensed the weight of his words. They could feel the tremors of a momentous event on the horizon, though its exact nature remained shrouded in mystery. As the advisor turned to leave, he cast one last, searching look at Henir. Grand Duke, he said, his voice barely above a whisper, what are you really planning? Henir stood motionless, gazing out into the enveloping darkness. Far from showing fear or unease, he seemed to relax, as if drawing strength from the night itself. It was as if he had been born to meld with the darkness, to become one with the shadows that now enveloped him. His voice, when he spoke, was filled with a quiet certainty. I am the one who swims against the current, he murmured. Only those who dare to challenge the flow can truly change everything, obtain the unobtainable, and accomplish the impossible. 98. In the deep water port of the Cell Kingdom, a terrifying creature floated in the sky, resembling a massive jellyfish. Its semi-transparent membrane spread like a colossal umbrella, with countless waving tendrils reminiscent of ancient tree vines. As it breathed, the layered clouds in the sky swirled in and out of its form, consumed and expelled with each massive breath. The Star Luo Queen stood atop this enormous beast, surrounded by her priest group. The combined power of the beast and the priests would unleash an even greater force, representing the strongest battle formation of the Xylong family. It was clear that the Xylong family had spared no effort in their quest to restore the glory of Yinsai. Cell family, the queen's voice rang out. You have but one choice. Submit or perish. From the river encircling the deep water port, a terrifying beast over 100 meters long, its head resembling a steel helmet, gradually surfaced. Behind it trailed agile, thick tentacles. With a single wave, it could propel itself hundreds or even thousands of meters, hinting at its incredible speed in the water. This was the Cell Sea Spirit, the Ru beast cultivated by the Cell family. It had once used its steel-like head to sink a small island in the sea and destroy a rebellious coastal city with a single impact. The beast roared at the sky beast above, but as its voice stabilized, it transformed into that of a trilobite man. Star Luo Queen, it spoke. We have never favored any side. The Cell family has the right to remain neutral. The Xylong family has no authority over the Cell family. We have the freedom to remain unbound by anyone. The Star Luo Kingdom's demand for the Cell family to relinquish their royal power was absolutely unacceptable. Without their royal authority in the Cell Kingdom, how could they remain the exalted royal bloodline family? Despite the overwhelming odds, they desperately clung to a sliver of hope. That hope, their last lifeline, was the Samo Kingdom. The Star Luo Queen stood atop the sky beast, the Ru brand on her forehead glowing brilliantly as she raised her scepter. King of the Cell family, I once gave you a chance. I even offered to share God's grace with you. But alas, you wavered, and even prepared to accept terms from Star Luo's enemies, readying to attack us. The Star Luo Kingdom and the Xylong family will absolutely not allow such an existence to remain by our side. With these words, war became inevitable. As soon as she finished speaking, the priest group of the Sky Temple began controlling massive boulders, hurling them down from the sky to bombard the deep water port. The boulders fell like meteors striking the earth. A cacophony of impacts thundered through the air as plumes of smoke and dust erupted within the deep water port. Several sections of the city walls instantly crumbled. This first round of attacks alone inflicted heavy damage on the entire deep water port. The sky beast in the air howled, stirring up fierce winds as it descended. As it dispersed the dust over the deep water port, it also lunged towards the Cell Sea Spirit in the river outside the city. Boom! As the two beasts clashed, the earth itself trembled. On the ground, thousands upon thousands of trilobite men charged towards the collapsed sections of the deep water port's walls, initiating the siege. Although the Ru beasts were key to determining the war's outcome, it would still be people who would ultimately control and occupy the city. This was why each country had to bring large numbers of soldiers to every major battle. The conflict raged relentlessly from high noon to dusk, neither side willing to yield. The Cell family continued to hold out, desperately waiting for news and reinforcements from the Samo kingdom. The brutal combat between the two beasts surged from the river to the shore, and then from the shore out to sea. Still, neither side had gained the upper hand. But under the siege of the Star Luo Kingdom's great army, the deep water port was gradually buckling. Large contingents of Star Luo Kingdom soldiers poured into the city, engaging in street battles. The fall of the deep water port had entered its final countdown. In the distance, as the sun sank into the sea, the tide began to recede. The path to the city of sea spirits appeared along the coast. The Star Luo Queen noticed this development. Unable to contain her excitement, she called out to the entity controlling the Cell Sea Spirit. "Cell family," she cried out triumphantly, "your defeat is at hand." The entire Cell Kingdom was retreating step by step, the scales of victory tipping decisively in favor of the Star Luo Kingdom. In the heat of battle, the Queen failed to notice a crucial change. The Ru brand on her forehead was rapidly fading away. The sky beast beneath her feet was growing increasingly agitated, no longer as obedient as before. Finally, before the eyes of all, the sky beast that had served the Xylong family for hundreds of years suddenly became uncontrollably frenzied, letting out a muffled roar. Roar! The sky beast had lost control. It shook off the Star Luo Queen's command, breaking free from the centuries of enslavement and restraint imposed by the Xylong family. The sky beast plunged chaotically from midair directly into the sea, abandoning its advantage to tangle with the Cell Sea Spirit. They fought like two savage beasts, tearing at each other. At the same time, it no longer protected the Star Luo Queen and the Sky Temple priest group within its body. It felt extremely uncomfortable and agitated, for after all, who would like insects crawling inside their body? Its first reaction upon coming to its senses was to kill these uncomfortable insects. In an instant, the Star Luo Queen and the Sky Temple priest group, hidden within the Sky Beast's air sacs, faced a catastrophe. The Star Luo Queen and the Sky Temple priest group fell into complete panic as they felt the air being completely sucked out of the sacs. The beast's membranes pressed in from all sides like walls. There was nowhere to escape. They had trapped themselves in an inescapable death cage. What was once their safest place had now become their tomb. "Ah, Your Majesty, how could this happen? Save me, save me. Your Majesty, quickly make the Sky Beast stop." One by one, the Sky Temple priests were crushed by the pressing membranes, turning into pulp in the blink of an eye. The Star Luo Queen also panicked. She cried out in helpless confusion, but to no avail. "Why is this happening? How could this be? It won't stop, it won't stop. It's not listening to me anymore." The Star Luo Queen suddenly realized the reason she couldn't control the Sky Beast. One of the Ru brands on her forehead had completely disappeared. Only now did she understand what had happened. The Xylong family's Ru brand was gone. God had reclaimed the gift once bestowed upon Redlichia. The Star Luo Queen's eyes instantly became hollow, her will to struggle vanishing entirely. "God," she gasped, her voice barely a whisper. "Is this your punishment for my wavering faith?" The air was sucked dry. She first felt difficulty breathing, then the flesh membranes pressed in like stone walls. Gulp! She even heard the Sky Beast swallowing sound. They were like insects casually swallowed by it. They weren't even enough to fill its teeth. The Star Luo Queen finally realized that they had never truly been the masters of the Ru beasts. Without God's grace, in the face of such mythical creatures, they were merely insects, too insignificant even to be worthy of becoming food. 99. Within the deep water port city, the Star Luo Kingdom's army witnessed the Sky Beast's loss of control outside the city walls, and saw the Sky Temple priest group crushed into a pulp like insects. What's happening? How can this be? The beast has gone mad, it's gone mad. It killed Her Majesty the Queen. Chaos erupted everywhere. The kingdom's troops, who had just breached the deep water port, now stood frozen in disbelief, their eyes fixed on the unfolding catastrophe. Henier's vassal and advisor, sent earlier to support the attack on the deep water port, now watched this scene with chills running down their spines. His fingers trembled involuntarily. Grand Duke, he gasped, his voice trembling. Was this your plan all along? He couldn't imagine, nor did he dare to imagine, how his Grand Duke had foreseen all of this. A strange insect on his shoulder suddenly stirred, and a familiar voice echoed in his mind. His master, the Grand Duke of Volcano, observing the situation through the divine technique of consciousness projection. Subsequently, the vassal led the Volcano Duchy's 2,000 troops in a final assault, giving the Cell forces in the deep water port no chance to regroup. He charged to a high point and roared. The Cell family is to blame. He bellowed. They caused the death of Her Majesty the Queen. Now we must avenge her. His words reignited everyone's fighting spirit, or rather, ignited a frenzy in the hearts of the Star Luo Kingdom soldiers. The out-of-control Sky Beast and the Cell Sea Spirit were locked in fierce combat. The Sky Beast, in its madness, attacked the Cell Sea Spirit, retaliating for the injuries it had previously suffered. At the other end of the sky, in the City of Sea Spirits, the final battle was unfolding. Outside the City of Sea Spirits, Henier watched as the setting sun revealed the pathway formed by the receding tide, leading to the majestic city on the sea. The traps and terrors set by the Cell family, hidden beneath the waves, vanished as the tide retreated. Through the divine technique of consciousness projection, he had witnessed the Sky Beast's rampage and the Star Luo Queen's demise. He had once sworn before the statue of the Yinsai god to always obey the Star Luo Queen's commands. And indeed, he had done so while she lived. The Star Luo Queen was dead. She died from overusing the power of God's grace. All oaths vanished with her, and the most terrifying restraint upon him was lifted. At this moment, he couldn't describe the feeling in his heart. Joy, or perhaps sorrow, it seemed to be neither. The Queen's death hadn't been his desire, yet it was the key that unlocked his ambitions. Henier gazed at the setting sun and the path stretching endlessly before him. His eyes were deep and unfathomable. Everyone believed God's grace was infinite. Everyone thought the Ru beasts were eternal, and thus the Trilobite men could possess them forever. Alas, even God's love has its limits. It was God's favor towards Redlichia, not a gift to the Trilobite men and Yinsai. How could he allow us to squander it recklessly? The Ru brand on Henier's forehead began to emit a faint glow, and the mythical beast beneath his feet obeyed his will. Once, he had thought this power was his own, and he had indulged in the illusion of omnipotence. Now, he truly felt the weight of this power in his very bones. This was the power of God, and only the great God could make these terrifying mythical monsters prostrate themselves like slaves. Like all the royal bloodline families, he was merely a fool who basked in God's grace, deluding himself with notions of his own greatness. The burrowing demon worm carried Henier into the earth, heading towards the distance. With a single command, Henier resolutely launched the final assault on the City of Sea Spirits. Seizing the moment when the gates to the City of Sea Spirits had just opened, and while the Cell Sea Spirit was away, Henier, with lightning speed, led the burrowing demon worm and his soldiers into the City of Sea Spirits. He didn't know how long the Sky Beast could hold off the Cell Sea Spirit, nor when it would return. He knew one thing with certainty: everything had to end before the Cell Sea Spirit returned. Woo-woo! The burrowing demon worm emerged from beneath the earth, shattering the city walls built of massive stones. Swarms of Volcano Duchy soldiers followed the burrowing demon worm into the City of Sea Spirits, beginning their occupation and slaughter. Without its beast, the City of Sea Spirits stood no chance against the burrowing demon worm. Henier stood atop the burrowing demon worm, raising his Ru sword towards the front. Kill. The Cell family killed our queen. Leave no one from the Cell family alive. All the treasures in the palace are yours. Now, avenge Her Majesty the Queen. All the Volcano Duchy soldiers and priest group, hearing Henier's call, fell into a frenzy. Though it was unclear whether it was rage over the Queen's death or greed for treasure that drove them. They pushed back the Cell family's soldiers and guardian priests, forcing them to retreat and surrender. The streets echoed with the cries of the wounded and the pounding feet of those fleeing for their lives. The palace was in chaos, with everyone desperately trying to escape. Anyone could see that the Cell Kingdom was finished. In a tunnel leading from the palace to the sea, a group hurriedly made their way towards the ocean floor. The elderly king, supported by others, moved quickly. The king of the Cell Kingdom cried out in resentment. The Cell Sea spirit is held up and can't return now. That base and shameless bastard, next time, I'll make him pay the heaviest price. We haven't lost yet. As long as the Cell Sea spirit exists, our throne still stands. The Star Luo Queen is dead. If we can escape from here and find the Cell Sea spirit, we can reclaim everything. Their plan was simple. Escape, regroup with the Cell Sea spirit, and then return to reclaim their kingdom. But Henier, controlling the burrowing demon worm beneath the ground, immediately located them through the subtle vibrations underground. The burrowing demon worm's terrifying head squeezed into the tunnel, its ferocious maw spewing sticky fluid. Found you. The beast's head turned around in the tunnel, instantly swallowing the people around the Cell King along with the stones, or crushing them into a pulp. Faced with the burrowing demon worm, the king of the Cell Kingdom collapsed in fear. No, I am the king of the Cell family, a descendant of King Redlichia. Sacred blood flows through my veins, you can't do this. Henier, who had consumed the Hosen family and despised the royal bloodline families, showed no mercy to the king's pleas. The elderly king's head was severed by Henier's sword, taking with it the intact Ru brand. The king of the Cell family was slain by Henier, in the name of avenging the Star Luo Queen. He held the king's head, blood dripping continuously through his palm. A triumphant smile spread across Henier's face, a mix of satisfaction and dark ambition. Your Majesty, I have avenged you. In the future, I will also realize your dream. Henier walked along the tunnel towards the surface, the Ru beast beside him clearing the path. Finally, he emerged above ground. He stood before the palace of the Cell Kingdom. Only a sliver of light remained from the setting sun on the horizon, the last gleam before darkness. He spread his arms, welcoming the arrival of darkness. Now, the era belongs to me. 100. God, she gasped, her voice barely a whisper. Is this your punishment for my wavering faith? The Star Luo Queen closed her eyes in despair. As her consciousness sank into darkness, a light suddenly appeared before her. It was a beam of light descending from an infinite height, shining directly upon the Star Luo Queen. At the source of the light stood God's messenger, clad in a golden robe. Descendant of Redlichia, the messenger's voice resonated, God has not punished anyone. All that has transpired is the result of your own choices. The dream spirit had unlocked the gates to God's realm, creating ferrymen to navigate the sea of dreams in search of trilobite men worthy of the dream power. All of this was done to strengthen the power of the dream world. And at this moment, the Star Luo Queen was about to become the first memory star to enter the dream sea. This was the dream spirit's first gift to God. God's messenger descended step by step from above, approaching the Star Luo Queen. You chose destruction yourself, abandoning the future. God has not punished anyone, nor does he care about your devotion. The dream spirit Hela looked at the Star Luo Queen. Because of your abandonment, you lost the glory of entering God's realm while alive. But after death, you still have a chance to enter God's realm. The Star Luo Queen looked at the dream spirit. Can someone like me truly enter God's realm? The dream spirit replied, of course you can. From the moment God reclaimed the destructive power of the beasts, the gates of God's realm have once again opened to the trilobite men. Everyone has the chance, after death, to become a memory star in the dream sea, forever surrounding God's realm, accompanying the eternal God. You no longer need to fear falling into eternal darkness or worry about wandering in the endless savage desert. God has allowed you to return home. The spirit paused here, her tone becoming more serious. However, the spirit continued, her tone grave, you must face a trial. The spirit's eyes bore into the Star Luo Queen's, as if peering into the depths of her soul. The dream ferryman, steering the divine boat, will illuminate your memory dream. If your memory dream is a beautiful one. The Star Luo Queen quickly asked the messenger, what qualifies as a beautiful dream? The dream spirit told her, when the goodness in your heart outweighs the evil, when the beauty in your soul overcomes the nightmares. Then your life's dream will be a beautiful one. The spirit reached out her hand, extracting the Star Luo Queen's lifetime of memories. Her memories separated from her shell, continuously expanding until they enveloped her entirely. Finally, they transformed into a dreamlike bubble surrounding her. The Star Luo Queen's gaze penetrated the bubble's wall, observing her entire life. Scenes flickered and changed on the bubble's surface, deeply etched images from her memories, experiences once forgotten now resurfacing. At this moment, everything appeared within the bubble. She saw herself as a child. The image of her younger self, joyfully scooping up an ancestral fish from the sacred lake, smiling at her father. She watched her younger self learn to speak the divine words, carefully tracing what was said to be God's first drawn character, the Son. She witnessed her first awakening of the power of wisdom, and the moment she received the Rue brand. Most of her life had been beautiful, but all the beauty and happiness didn't come from the trilobite men themselves. Food, divine language, power, everything came from God. From birth to death, every trilobite man relied on God's grace. The Star Luo Queen suddenly felt immense shame. How could she, with her petty mindset, have dared to judge the great and merciful God? So we've been consuming God's gifts all along, without even realizing it. Without God, we couldn't survive in this world at all. Despite our weakness and fragility, we arrogantly considered ourselves powerful. The Star Luo Queen raised her head and saw a massive gate slowly opening. Beyond the gate, an endless sea of golden flowers swayed. It was the God-given land, the homeland of all trilobite men. In the sky, the divine cup had become the sun, and the crown of wisdom had transformed into the dream moon. "Thank you," the queen breathed, her eyes shining with gratitude. Messenger of the Yinsai God. Although she didn't know why God had opened the gates of his realm to the trilobite men, she felt that it was the dream spirit's efforts that allowed the wanderers to finally return home. They would no longer have to wander eternally in this endless desert. She walked towards the gate of God's realm, her form gradually dissipating in the light, merging into the memory dream. The memory dream star slowly rose into the dream world, leaving behind her physical body in the mortal realm. Dream realm. Under the glow of the dream moon, a boat approached from the distant dream sea. The divine boat arrived at the opened gates of the dream world, receiving the Star Luo Queen's memory dream. Before the boat's lantern, the ferryman, now a shadow, cradled the Star Luo Queen's lifetime and placed it beneath the light. The lantern's light flickered like a flame, illuminating the Star Luo Queen's dream. The once ordinary dream erupted into a kaleidoscope of colors, transforming the divine boat into a breathtaking spectacle of light and hue. Inside were vibrant colors, grays, and darkness. But gradually, the colors overpowered the black, finally dispelling the darkness completely. This was a beautiful dream that could be illuminated. The dream ferryman, carrying the memory dream, sailed down the dream sea, arriving above the God-given land. He hung this memory dream in midair, transforming it into a star. The star's light projected downward, becoming a radiance that fell upon the gardens of the God-given land, illuminating the cities and God-given paradise where the trilobite men's ancestors once dwelled. Within the Star Luo Queen relived her beautiful life dream over and over again. Until the end of time. In the Hall of God, Yin Shen stood by the window of the divine hall, observing the new star outside. The dream sea had now been divided into several layers. The topmost layer held the dream starlight of the trilobite men, those bizarre and wonderful creations born in sleep and forgetfulness. Below were the brilliant stars of the trilobite men's memory dreams. The purer the beautiful dream, the closer it was to the God-given land. It would record the lives of countless trilobite men, the beginnings and ends of era after era, even the birth and destruction of civilization after civilization. Even as time might erase all traces of their civilization, reducing cities to dust and obscuring their written and spoken words, their legacy would endure here. In this dream sea, all traces of their existence would still remain. Ripples of starlight appeared behind Yin Shen, and the dream spirit Hela stood behind him, bowing respectfully. "Great God," Hela began, her voice filled with concern, "no one willingly relinquishes the power of destruction. They can only see the fleeting present, unable to perceive the bright future." God seemed to have anticipated this, or perhaps he had never cared. "Oh." Yin Shen didn't turn his head, merely saying, "If that is so," God mused, "perhaps they are not yet ready to wield the power of dreams." The spirit lowered her head, bowing deeply to God. "Oh, God," Hela pleaded, "the trilobite men may not be perfect, but I have seen that even in the darkest dreams, they still seek beauty. I will surely find someone worthy of receiving the power of dreams."